3, I got a little pre-episode homework for you guys all. So before you guys watch today's episode, I need you guys to go on this simplyfaster.com. Bob Alejos wrote an amazing article. Super excited about its in-season lifting program, and that's what we're talking about today. So we go over everything from the way to critiquing the article, some great things that I found in here, some things that we do a little differently. I go through our entire in-season program, how we template it, how we block it, our auto regulation, and how we use some of the Tendo units in season, the movements, how we wave everything. I go over the CNS and talk about just general stressors on that. So it's an awesome episode. My whole staff's in here, and we're just going through it. A lot of them asked some really good questions. Like I said, we dissect this article, so ton of great stuff in here today. Enjoy it. If you guys need anything at the end of the episode, just feel free to reach out to me and let me know. Enjoy it, guys. We'll see you over there. So before we start here, guys, I need everybody to log on and read this article. So yesterday I printed out Bob Alejos on simplyfaster.com. It's on their blog piece. Okay, before you watch this episode, I want everybody to go on and read this if you're not familiar with it. Something he recently wrote is obviously is right now kind of a big buzz around the strength and conditioning world here, which has been awesome. I'm incredibly happy that he wrote it. I think it's very well needed. But anyways, last night I printed this out for my staff. Our homework assignment was to read it, highlight it, go through it, ask questions. So we're gonna start off by dissecting this article, this blog, talking about some of the things we took from it, some of the things that have us thinking deeply about it, and then we're also gonna flow through our in-season program, some of the similarities that I believe in with what Bob wrote, some of the things that are maybe a little contradictory to what I believe and what's worked for me. So we'll kind of, like I said, tear this article apart, go through this. Any questions my staff has, obviously I'll answer those to the best of my ability. And like I said, I'll take you guys through our in-season program as well. So enjoy the ride here, and we're just gonna roll through this thing. So I don't know, with obviously everyone here, I don't know how much in-season program we've done. So you guys have seen me kind of roll through it and heard me speak on my philosophies. But as I was telling you guys, one thing that when I first started programming the season, I was very nervous to lift heavy weights during the year. I just, I thought it was too taxing. I would just, we would do it maybe 1 week out of a wave, and I would be kind of walking on eggshells the entire time, just nervous, not wanting to hurt anybody. And I played D3 football, so, and TJ, you can, talk about our strength program there too, but it was, if you weigh, 200 pounds or less, you're going to squat 185 pounds for 3 sets of 10 on Sunday. And if you're 200 and heavy, you're going to do 225, and if you're 250 and heavy, you're going to do 275. And that was our squat program in season at Mount Union. So like me being, on the edge of that and kind of, knowing that, that's like what I was accustomed to. So high volume is kind of the way to back off. So my first year programming in season in 2014, I was definitely more so towards that. And I had a lot of guys coming up to me after their lifts. They'd be the next day of practice. That typical modified Joe. You do the modified Joe straight leg kick. They snap up, snap down. We squatted the day before, and I got guys going, oh shit, my hamstrings are sore. And I didn't like it. I didn't like that at all. So obviously, you can only read so much in such a short amount of time. But I just started crushing through books and really reading more on intensifications, responsive training, and just trying to learn as much as I could about it. And I kind of came across the philosophy of talking to some other coaches that had tried some things. That you could dabble with some heavier weights in season and be successful with it. So in 2015 was my first year really switching to, we were freaking lifting heavy. We were squatting heavy, we clean, we bench, and we weren't afraid to chase weights. So we switched to it in 2015. It was awesome. I mean, our guys were notably stronger than the teams we were playing, at the end of the season. I mean, it was something where I had multiple people come up to me, even, the players saying, wow, I just feel not as broken down. So that was kind of the opposite of what I had always heard, coming up and reading and talking to you. I kind of always heard, keep it light, in season. You know, we're trying to maintain. You know, and that's the best thing I like about Bob in this article. He talks about if you have a maintenance attitude in season, you're going to get freaking way weaker. You got to have the attitude of I'm going to try to get stronger, and then you might have a chance at maintaining. So definitely took that on in 2015, that first year. You know, I know it was a little bit of a shift for the guys. You know, mentality. You know, there's something about putting 400 pounds on your back in season, 500 pounds on your back in season. So it was a little mentality shift, but when we promoted it, it was obviously we had to explain the why it was so essential. You know, explaining to them what we were doing and why we were doing it. But the results, like I said, were great. And then, you know, last year would be the second year that we really implemented that in-season aggressive lifting program. And you know, once it's, you know, same results. Guys were able to maintain a lot of their strength throughout the season. I mean, we had 5 guys squatting over 500 pounds in the season, right? I mean, the last squat cycle, you know, we had 5 of our offensive linemen who were crushing 500, like, you know, it was their job. So we're definitely not afraid to lift some weight. So, anyways, enter this article. As soon as I read it, I was like, this is, you know, because I wanted to do a episode on in-season programming. Like, this is freaking great. This will map it right up. So, I'm just going to go through it and kind of skim through it first, and I'll talk about, you know, I have some things highlighted, some ideas. We can kind of talk about those, and then any questions that you guys have or whatever comments we have, we'll just kind of roll with that. So, I've highlighted here, maximum contractions at low volume achieve better strength levels by the end of the year and reduce the in-season soreness and fatigue, which results from training programs that are too high in volume. And like I said, that's right on with what I found. So our guys, they would lift heavy, they would lift higher reps. It would create soreness, and we weren't getting that strong. So kind of the opposite thing of what you want to do in season. In season, I want the absolute minimum stimulus and the absolute maximum result. I'm literally sitting there saying, what is the absolute least I can do to keep these guys getting stronger without getting them sore? That is all I'm trying to do, is just get them stronger, don't create soreness. So we were failing in that, you know, like I said, back in 2014, because we were creating soreness. So the first thing Bob opens up with, boom, I'm freaking already dialed in, okay? So he kind of gets into some of his rep ranges, all right, and he talks about, you know, 5 reps should be your top zone, and you should work mainly in 1 to 3s, okay? I don't love singles in season, just because obviously if they're heavy enough, they get after the CNS a little bit. So I'd say I'm more of a fan of 2 to 3 repetitions in season, but I've noticed hasn't caused, you know, much central nervous system fatigue, but has resulted in good strength gains. And then, yeah, you know, anything over 5 reps, if you know, I've noticed if we really bump them up over 5 in a season, they're going to get a little sore about things. Now, the only exception to that for me is auxiliary lifts. I'm still a fan of volume auxiliary lifts, keeping work capacity, GPP with our auxiliary stuff, and it's something that we've trained. So I mean, they've been doing it with me now for 5 years. We're working 10s, 12s, 15s, 20s with our auxiliary movements. That it's just clockwork. Their bodies are used to it. It's not some crazy soreness that we get from it, and we have it. You know, our guys can come do 3 sets of 15 reverse hypers, and they feel better because of it. So that hasn't been an issue for us. You know, he has here the goal, and I just highlighted this for a few reasons, but he says the goal, decrease strength loss in the season. You know, I still think it's funny, the coaches out there that say, you know, we're gonna peak for the playoffs, or we're gonna maintain our performance level in season. No, the fuck you're not. You know, you're just not. I mean, if you think about where our guys are at the end of summer, from a speed, explosive power, you know, strength, mobility. I mean, they're prime, okay? And then you go and you take their body through freaking hell. You know, a season's damn near 20 weeks. So you're telling me I can beat this shit out of you for 20 straight weeks, take all those hits, you know, you roll your ankle, you tweak your shoulder, you know, your low back. I mean, you're telling me to do all that, and I'm gonna have you in peak condition at the end of the season. It just ain't the freaking truth. I mean, anybody who can do it, anybody watching this, if you figured it out, please let me know. But as far as collegiate athletes, now high school, that's another story. That's probably another episode. But collegiate athletes, people that have reached, you know, their biological maturation, and they're not getting that novice effect of lifting, you ain't gonna peak anybody's performance. You're not. I mean, they're peaked at that point in time, and then they start gradually getting those hits. And so I just love that Bob said, the goal, decrease strength loss in season. He has, by mere frequency and duration, maintaining strength during the season is almost impossible. However, decreasing the amount of strength loss is very possible. So just going along with that, I don't know how many people are confident to come out and say that. I think everyone tries to claim that they can get stronger in season and so on and so forth. So it was refreshing to hear Bob has been doing for so long talk about that. Just a reminder, so you get into this stuff, and I think when you read it, you have to read it with a grain of salt and still understand, which Bob says here, cycles of hard work need to have recovery periods. Just because we're in season lifting and it's not an off-season program, and maybe we're not hitting 95%, they still need to have that wave where they deload and they recover. You can't just keep on freaking cranking 3s and 5s and 4s at them and you're staying, moderately heavy to heavy. You have to back off and you have to deload. You have to do those things. So I couldn't agree more there. And he talks about the beginning of spring training, and he's referring to baseball here, but the beginning of spring training is a perfect time for backing off of the strength conditioning in this case. Not stopping it, but backing off. And I think that's another great point as well. So, obviously, for our in-season program is broken into 5 blocks, which we'll go through and make sure everyone understands. The first block is 4 weeks, and that's training camp. Okay, so training camp, obviously, volume does what? It goes freaking through the roof. They're sprinting, their volume is higher than it's ever been all summer long. So what we want to do is we want to try to decrease that in here. So that's what he's saying. It's a great time to back off. So that first block is the least aggressive block we have, which you guys have probably noticed, right? We're not freaking getting after it. There's not a ton of doubles and triples. We're doing more goblet squats. We're backing off them a little bit. And that's what that to me is a great time to insert that not a less aggressive block. And like I said, Bob says here, not stopping it, but backing off of it. So that first block, which is pre-camp, pre-training camp, that first block is our least aggressive block, and then we really start getting and hammering stuff home. He's got here, we want our athletes to stay as strong as possible while minimizing fatigue and reducing muscular soreness. Once again, he just keeps hammering that home, and I can't tell you how important that is those guys are out there doing hundreds of sprints at practice. They're going to be sore from that. The last thing we need to do is add to it. So that's one of the main things you got to think about in season. And then he just dials in some of this percentage stuff that I like. There's no shortage of research and training programs showing that loads above 85% or perhaps 80% are the best means to increase strength. So just thinking about as you're dialing up programming, you want to stay in those ranges, 80 to 85%. You want to train those, or else we're not going to increase strength, and we're going to be losing a lot of it. So remembering that as well. All right, and then here he just dived into some more percentage stuff. So he talks about, we looked at the amount of weight the player could do 5 reps as opposed to attempting 5 reps with 85%, which most likely would turn into 3 or 4. So he's referring to, as the season goes on, their 85% max might decrease a little bit. So you have to be able to adapt to that decrease. You can't just keep on banging them home with 85%, because TJ squat max might have been 580 in the beginning of the season. By the time the season ends, it's probably going to be closer to 550 if we're doing a really good job in maintaining strength, 560. And understanding that as you progress them through the season is massively important. Understanding you have to be able to change that. So instead of the 85 workout, 3 to 4 reps becomes 87 to 92%, which is a big difference, is what he's saying. So if you keep that weight consistent, throughout the whole season, well, he's no longer just squatting 85%, he's now squatting 90%, which is a whole nother freaking ball game. It's a whole nother monster, a whole nother beast. So making sure you're taking that up into accountable, or you're accounting for that. What's that?
I'll say that's where adding tendos into that would be freaking awesome.
Yeah, which when we'll talk about that here is we auto regulate a lot of that stuff. So I'll get into some of that stuff too. So and then this is great too. So people talk about hitting 7-8 reps. And he says when back squatting a set of 8 reps, you're not hitting max tension until about 6 or 7. So you talk about time in a weight room. Those last 2 reps are the first or the last 2 reps you have there. Turn this music down. Can you turn that music down, please? Anna, trying to record here, please. But so, I mean, the point of the story is if you're hitting 8s and we're not hitting max tension on 6 and 7, if I could do doubles and triples and hit max tension right off the rip, why would I not do that? Save time in the weight room, and then obviously save fatigue and soreness off the athletes. So he has low volume, high intensity weight training, gets the best strength effects and best manages injuries. And then he says, do they have to lift heavy? No, no one should all the time, but they need to do it. If you're looking to maintain strength in season, focus on gaining strength in season. And that's kind of what I said about the mentality that he has there for that. For the first few weeks in season, drop intensity 50 to 70% and maintain low reps 3 to 5. In this way, the athlete can recover from an intense last few weeks leading up to the season, have a slight train recovery, and prepare for heavier lifting to come. So it's kind of what I talked about with the in-season stuff. Now this is where I have a little bit of discrepancy. So in 2015, this is how we deloaded. So when I deloaded the guys, we deloaded with sets of 5. Percentages were super low, and it was when we weighed down, we'd back off the guys. Now what I noticed is when we went back to try to hit some sort of work capacity, we just had none in the weight room. And when we filtered into our hypertrophy stuff to start our next off season, our guys took so long to rebound from that that we didn't really get the gains that we had gotten in the years prior. Even when we were doing our bowl prep, what I saw was, we went back and did just a little bit of volume, like a couple sets of 8, and dudes were freaking blown up from these sets of 8. So I think just having a well-balanced program, if you're doing sets of 8 and you're working them at 50% just to keep the bar in their hand that long, or keep it on the back there that long, and them get used to those reps, it's not going to be enough to where it's going to cause a ton of soreness. And those have been our most successful deloads, is when we've done those. So, I just didn't like what happened to our guys when we deloaded with lower reps. I like to add the variation of them going back up and hitting 8s. Now, I'm not saying to hit 12s and 15s in the season on bench and squat, but when we deload, which I'll show you guys how we do it, we'll work our 3 heavy weeks where we're working in the 80 to 85% zone, and then instead of staying within 3 to 5 reps, we'll go up to 8 to deload, and we'll keep our percentages, around 50, 55%. So it's light, but I mean, you can't tell me if you went out and did 8 squats, at 185 right now, you're going to be sore from it. It's just not going to happen. And when we did it last year, I never had issues with it. So, and we were able to keep building strength. So, that's probably the only thing that I had and that's from results. I mean, like I said, you can read 1,000 books and show someone 1,000 research articles, but for us, when we deloaded, when we tried the low rep stuff, it just didn't freaking work. It just didn't work for us. When we went up and we do 8s, it worked out fantastically. And it was a good mix. The guys like it from a monotony standpoint. The guys love getting out of the 3 to 5 range and getting up into the 8s, and it feels like something really different. So we just had more success with that, and that's what worked for us. It doesn't mean that it would work everywhere else, but that's what's worked for us when we deloaded our in-season stuff. Okay. So now he gets back into volume stuff, talking about volume. Too much volume adds fatigue. No volume, there's no soreness. A deload week of lightweight and high reps is not a rest week strategy. Like I said, I just don't agree with that. And that's I don't have any problem with him writing that. I definitely know there's a plenty of scientific basis to back that statement. It just didn't work for us. It just didn't. And so that's where we are. Okay. So again, if you're not working on size and you're not working on strength, he says, what are you doing? And I just said, like I said, we're teaching our athletes, we're enabling our athletes how to handle more reps, how to keep them, keep them, have the ability to have work capacity, GPP, and that's why we keep our reps high for that deload week. Okay. Here he says, all the tracking stuff is fantastic. We like it, but what we found when we tracked minutes, doing stuff, treatment, lifting, practicing games, shooting practice, walking around at the mall, shopping, playing with kids, we found that guys who had the most minutes were the most fatigued. And it's just like, no shit. At the end of the day, you still got to remember you're not just battling practice and weightlifting. There's so much other stuff that you have to take into consideration, which is why I think the Tendo unit auto regulation stuff is the future. It's so, if the 6 of us are doing the same program, but if your girlfriend broke up with you and your dog died and you just had the crush of your life ask you out on a date, you're going to be feeling a little bit different than these two are. And you guys, your 80% might feel like fucking 98, and your 80% might feel like 62%. And there's really no way to tell that. Obviously, there's a certain piece of the naked eye, but for us to have a Tendo unit that can say, hey, we're not hitting 80% of the day, we're hitting 0.43 meters per second. Well, then that regulates it perfectly for us, so we know we can take these variabilities into account. And I'll go through that about how we program that stuff here soon, but let's get back and stay on Bob's article here. So here he says, high intensity work limits soreness, emphasizes strength, and defeats fatigue, which is, that's like the drop mic sentence of this thing, which is what I couldn't agree more. When you keep the reps low, you keep the percentages moderately high, and you let them move some weights, and they're hitting them for 2 to 4 repetitions, you will limit their soreness, you will increase their strength, and you'll defeat the in-season fatigue. And that's just the truth. It's what I've noticed from our results here. And like I said, that's kind of the end all be all of, at the end of the day, this article is great. That's like my favorite sentence out of the whole thing. So before I dive into mine, let's just kind of dissect it. What questions did we have on the article, or comments or anything?
Planning a strategy. So some weeks, that your opponent is going to be a little bit tougher. So would you do your reload that week, or would you do your peak?
Yes, it's a great question, and I don't think I have the answer to it yet. And this is the first year that I haven't sat there and looked at the calendar and said, oh, we're going to peak for Kent, we're going to peak for OU, we're going to peak for the MAC championship. I just didn't do that this year. And it's because, the more I use my head, I'm just like, well, we're not gonna peak. And I don't necessarily think you're not necessarily your body. We control the variables in the summertime. So we know if we have weeks 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 in summer. We know we're gonna peak them here, and then we're gonna deload them, and then get our super compensation. And we know we're gonna same thing, build them up, deload them, and peak them again for training camp. We know that we can control those things. But I don't freaking know what's going to happen in this season. I don't know what weeks are going to do what. Now, I know bye week I can get after them a little more. I know their volume's going to be down bye week. I know that their stress and anxiety levels are going to be down bye week. So that's programmed differently in here. But as far as peak, I think consistently trying to make strength gains and us being as consistent as possible in here and keeping up with our waves, I think that's how you're gonna have you're gonna dissipate the most fatigue, you're gonna dissipate the most soreness, and I think you're gonna emphasize the most strength. Now we'll see. Maybe there's maybe we'll notice this year that, oh shit, all the games that we deloaded right before, we freaking crushed them. Or maybe we'll notice hey, when we peaked, that week 3 peak, those were all of our best games. Or maybe we'll notice that nothing happened. But I haven't seen enough that's makes me feel like when we did that last year, or even the last 4 years, that it's made any difference. When I was hey, all right, we're peaking against Kent State, man, our guys really look primed, ready to go. They look like everybody. They're fighting the good fight to keep on pushing through the season. I just haven't noticed any difference, but we'll see. This is the year, so hopefully brings not the director's transition here next year because I got fired or something.
But kind of piggyback on what you said when we're talking about the article, taking it kind of with a grain of salt, not just for you guys. When it comes to programming, you really have to look at the team, because when we first started doing the in-season programs for last semester, we cut the reps down. We had this great program, and sometimes we took a lot of things out throughout the season. I think one time within the article it talks about not having a lot of ballistic movements or Olympic movements within the program because they do so much running throughout the practice. Well, we started in the summer, for instance, we started doing some Olympic stuff for some heavy block cleans or the banded squats, but we got so much volume and we got so much upside off what we were doing at the hill. We took that out towards the end of the summer. That could be the same thing when we get into the season as well. So, but another thing, when it talked about is the 3 up, 1 down, 4 up, 1 down. When it comes to its deload, like how we deload, we do the kind of 70 by 3 by 8. Talk about that and what your thought process with that as well.
Well, yeah, I mean, that's what I'm talking about with the deload weeks. So we'll I'll wait till we get into our program and I'll go through that, and I'll tell them. We'll talk about that, our deload stuff, so they can see the waves and everything. I'll show them then. What else? Questions, comments?
He also states in here, there are times when volume training is effective and we expect and plan for some dulling, but never before a needed performance. Besides when we talk about your deload, instead of using 5 reps, we bump it up to 8 reps or whatever the case may be. When else during the season or preseason or during the season do you add volume other than
I think in that particular sense, I think he's just referring to try to make sure he's not demonizing all volume, which I think he's referring more to out of season. I don't think he wants any volume in season. But like we talk about, what are the benefits of hypertrophy? You guys remember any of them?
benefits of our greater cross-sectional area.
Greater cross-sectional area.
Basically enabling you to get stronger, recruit more motor units.
Reset the neuromuscular system, kind of prep it, marinate it for strength stuff. So there's obviously a lot of benefits now. In season wise, I still think we should attack our accessory movements with volume. I still think doing a reverse hyper with 3 sets of 15 is much more effective than doing 3 sets of 3 with a reverse hyper. When we're doing some of our shoulder work, some of our things, I still think volume for our accessory movements. I think volume is where you need to be. I'm never just going to do 3 scat pull aparts or 3 blackburns. When we get to those accessory movements, I want to fatigue them a little bit. I want them to have to maintain technique through a little bit of stress, and so that's where I personally think that you keep your volume. All of our main movers, we're not going to do 15s and 12s. We're going to be 5s at high. We're going to work down to doubles, sometimes even singles, depending on the guy. But I think with those accessory movements, you have to keep your volume still. You just have to. And that's a little different. I think he just tries to avoid volume completely. I'm not exactly sure what he was referring to, but I think he was more saying hey, I'm not demonizing volume. What else?
Just as far as going heavy and lifting like that, do you think it gives guys kind of like a psychological factor where they're like, I just hit 500 for 3 this week, I'm coming into a game it's the guy across the ball is not going to be intimidating me. I just hit 500 this weekend, we're in season. Do you think that adds any kind of
I think for sure. I think more so maintaining their strength through the season is the big thing of it. I can tell you from my college career, it's a little demoralizing to know that you're going into the biggest game of your life, national championship, December 20th, and I'm fucking benching, 70 pounds less than I was, and I'm squatting 200 pounds less than I was, 5 months ago. That's a pretty terrible feeling. I don't know how much they get out of being hey, I'm still strong. I can tell you they're not getting that feeling though, being oh shit, I'm about to go play in the MAC championship and I can barely squat 225. They're not getting that feeling. So, I know that's not happening because I personally experienced that. I can tell I was man, I'm just freaking hanging on for dear life right now coming in those playoff games, and you're just thank God I'm playing D3 football and I'm a 260 pound tight end and I'm bigger than half the right guards in Division III, so that helped me out a little bit. But yeah, I can specifically remember that feeling and our guys aren't getting it. Like I said, our guys are in week 10 of the season and they freaking are crushing 500 pounds. Now this is a little bit about our program, but I think a big piece to understand too is, we're going heavy, but those are I call them confident reps. You're not that 3rd rep of 500 isn't a freaking struggle. we're always leaving a rep or two out there. So no matter what these percentages are, I'm not going to let my guys break technique and do a fatigue repetition in season. Now out of season, maybe we'll get underneath them, we'll spot them a little bit, we'll let them bleed out a rep, but you ain't doing that shit in this regular season. So we're going heavy, but it's something where if 550 is greens, 5 RM, I'll let him hit that for a double or triple in season. He'll maintain a good amount of his strength, but he's feeling super confident. He's racking that bar, not saying, fuck, I barely got that. He's racking that bar saying, man, I freaking crushed that. I could have hit 1 or 2 more of those things. So I think that's a big piece of it too, and just using your freaking head as a coach and knowing like, yeah, hey, we're going 90% today for a single, which everybody should be able to hit 90% of their single pretty easily. But if a guy's not, then knowing then you drop the weight or cut the reps or whatever it may be, and always being able to adjust. I think that's in season programs. You write them out and they look really pretty on a template for 5 blocks in 4 weeks, but you have to be able to adapt those freaking lifts. You know what I mean? Because everybody's banged up in season. You might have guys that can't squat; they got to go to the pitch shark. You might have guys that can't clean because they got a bad wrist or a bad shoulder or an elbow or fingers, so they got to do kettlebell swings or something along those lines. So you have to be willing to adapt for sure too. But that was that was a long answer to the question. But definitely, I mean, I'm sure it does give them confidence. But they're definitely not leaving here saying, man, I'm weak. They're leaving here saying, yep, I'm still freaking strong. I'm still ready to play football. What else?
I think the one thing that like playing it now, because we peaked right before camp, and then we had like a reload or whatever. But then they got this new program, and we did hypertrophy during camp. So then we had hypertrophy and the volume of 2-a-days on top of that. So especially like freshmen who went from high school to training on their own during the summer to coming in, doing hypertrophy in the weight room, and we're loading you up heavy, and we're gonna run a conditioning test, which was 20 half gashes on top of that. Like dudes were just getting wrecked. And I mean, on Mondays when we would lift, sometimes it would be high volume with lower body, and then Tuesdays would be a running day, so then your lower body's even more wrecked, and then you're expected to come in and lift. We were just putting so much volume on our bodies that like by Friday you didn't want to do anything, and then by Saturday,
yeah,
you were playing that game, and we were running fast pace and just wrecking people.
Yeah, man, that's why it's so freaking essential that there's got to be someone at a high school level that knows what they're doing. These lower level colleges, that's probably the biggest thing that's training conditioning that needs to change over the next 5-10 years is we got to get strength coaches that are freaking certified, that know what they're doing, and it needs to not be like that's the last person we're going to hire on a D3 staff. It needs just like Division I. I mean, it needs to be prioritized. No, there's no doubt about it, and it's for the like I said, the safety of the kids, and because it's not anyone's fault, but when you're the offensive line coach at a Division III school and you're recruiting, you're trying to keep your job, win football games, and on top of that, you're trying to run 3 lifting groups. I mean, it's just something's going to take take a seat,
yeah.
and I don't think that's a flaw with Mount Union. It's a flaw with D3 schools that don't have strength coaches, and you got to know. I mean, those dudes are there busting their ass doing the best they can, but they didn't freaking go to school to do this. They're not like we are reading this stuff, So they're all they're doing is trying to do the best thing that they know, and doing it really freaking well. But it's definitely, I'd say probably the biggest thing we were guilty for was going too hard, which I'd rather at the end of the day. Once again, it's probably another episode, but I'd say probably the new biggest thing that I'm reading, and the biggest mistake I made when I was a young strength coach was, like I said, I did too much volume, too much stuff. I definitely overstimulus on our athletes when I was first, and I didn't want to miss anything. It's probably more my mentality than anything, but it's also a fine line. Like at the end of the day, when it's 4th and 1 on the goal line with 2 seconds left, and it's either we're going to score and win or we're not going to, what really gets us in the end zone? Is it all those velocity-based, squats, those speed squats? Is it our max effort Friday lifts? Or is it that tough-ass shit that we did, like the shoulder complex, like the stuff, like the things where we taught our kids to be mentally strong, to not fear anything, that they can push through anything. That pain is nothing. They're all, it's a 12-play drive. They're freaking gassed. They got to put one more in the end zone. What really is going to make our guys better in that situation, and what's really going to make them better in life? You know, so it's a
mentality.
It's a fine line, is what I'm saying. Of yes, like we got to program smart. Yes, you know, I was definitely guilty of doing too much volume, and we could have been stronger in the past. We could have been faster. This summer was the lowest volume I've ever done in sprints, conditioning, and weightlifting. The lowest I've ever done. We were the biggest, the strongest, the fastest, and the best in shape we've ever been. I mean, that's pretty fucked up to think about, that I cut volume out of all three of those things. It's the least we've ever done in the 4 years I've been the strength coach here, and we got the best results from it.
And healthy out.
And the healthiest we've ever been.
Okay.
So yes, obviously that stuff's important, but what I'm saying is, it's got to be a mixture of the mentality of we're gonna freaking get butter out of a duck, and all right guys, you know, no music, we're gonna get very parasympathetic here, we're gonna just work on being nice, and we're gonna soothe, and we're never gonna push for reps, we're always gonna leave one or two out there. So there's a fine line there of knowing when to push, of knowing how to push, and obviously now we're talking about off season. We're not gonna freaking get guys out there and doing shoulder complex in season. But it's a piece of it that you have to understand, and it's delicate, and I don't know if I freaking have all the right answers. I know that we're getting freaking closer. I know this summer we created a mentally tough football team, but we did it more intelligently than we've ever done it before. I think there's definitely phases. You know, you have mat drills for a reason. If we can get a team freaking tough together and committed in mat drills, well then do we really need to do all that shit in the summertime or continue to hit those things? And that's what you gotta ask yourself. You know, you gotta to weigh those things in. And but you know, we've gotten better every year. You know, the best thing about this is I can say that for the 4 years I've been here, at the end of the summer, which I don't judge a summer off a summer. That's your January to July. That's what did we do off season one? How do we maintain strength through spring ball? That transition phase when they're in exams, and then summertime. How did we do that? Well, every time at the end of summer we hand these guys over to the coaches, I've been able to hand them, you know, a better team. You know, and part of that is obviously recruiting. We're getting better athletes, but I think we've gotten better at doing our jobs year in and year out. You're freaking better because it means you're learning, it means you're growing, it means you're educating yourself. You're not stuck in one way. But the in season is just way too big of a piece of it to not think about how you're going to program it. It's just super important. So, what else we got here?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's important for the out of regulation stuff.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I would say, I guess I would probably start with this then. So, just as far as having a plan in the season, you know, the biggest thing to think about is, so, you know, we have every coach in the country wants to have the best winter off-season program in the world. And then they want to prep themselves and have the best summer program in the world. Okay, well, those each last, you know, your off-season one lasts 9 weeks. Your second off-season, which is summer, lasts 9 weeks. We spend a ton of time on both those. Like those are like the bread makers, okay? But together, that equals 18 weeks. That we spend a ton of time on. And then we get in season, okay, which is your in season. You know, your in season from beginning to end, depending on how far you go, is about 20 freaking weeks. Okay, and most people just overlook this, and they're just saying, it's just, this episode's on in-season lifting, I don't need to worry about it. If he was talking about off-season lifting, then, you know, we do it. Probably racist now.
Yeah, appreciate it.
But they spend all this time thinking about their 18 weeks, and then they get in season, and it's football time. Well, it is football time, but if you don't have an educated, good program in season, you ain't gonna make it to where you want to be in 20 weeks, and you're gonna just keep on spinning your wheels on what's not working here, and not focus on what could be working here. So I can't tell you how imperative in-season lifting is. Okay, so how we do ours here. Okay, we have 5 total blocks, 5 4-week waves, and how we do it is just because, you know, it's obviously there's different ways you can do waves, but as we shift into our in-season stuff, You know, so we have our week 1, week 2, week 3, week 4. Okay, with our, as far as our weights and our percentages, we'll keep it linear. So you know, every wave will wave into the next. So you know, you have your 4-week block here, your 4-week block here, and your next one here. So as we end training camp, I want to back off them. I want to deload them. Okay. So intensity wise, as soon as we come in here for week 1, which this will be Penn State right here. So as soon as we come in for week 1, we're deloading. Okay. We're gonna back off them, and this is where I said we're gonna hit our 3x8s at 50%. Okay. So we're benching, we're squatting, we're doing those things, but it's very, very low intensity, and the repetitions go up. Get a little more repetitions on them. Okay, and then we start climbing the ladder. Okay, so here, you know, we'll work to, I think it's 5s. I'll get the exact numbers for you guys, because I care that much. Okay, so then we'll shift into we'll go 3x4 here, and this is on our core movements. So your squats, your bench presses, we're working 79%. Okay, so we're getting up there. We'll keep on climbing the ladder. Okay, week 3, we're 5-3-3. It's 5 at 77%, and then we got our triples. Okay, so our triples are at 85%, 85%. Week 4 is our peak week, so we're gonna get our heaviest there, and that's when we're working at our doubles. Okay, so we're 3x2 here, working into our doubles, and we're working up to 86%. Okay, now those are our exact squat or lower body percentages. I'll push it a little bit on bench press. I don't mind. Obviously, we're not running on our hands, so I'll push them up a little bit heavier with our presses. But so we're still working pretty freaking heavy in season, and then this repeats itself. Okay, so here you have, we lift twice a day. That's what we're hitting for our bench and squat. Okay, once we get to week 4, it recycles right back here. And then we put in new movements. So it might be block 1 is regular squat, block 2 is band squat, block 3 is box squat, block 4 is goblet squat. So it just keeps resetting itself every time. So we deload, we work up the mountain. We deload, we work up the mountain. We deload, we work up the mountain. So by the time we see end of the season, we've completed 5 total blocks through this. Okay. So you want to kind of look at this here, so zoom in on this. Okay, so if you look at us, here's our block 1. Okay, so we progress things. This is our training camp stuff. All right, then we get into our our first kind of aggressive series. You got your weeks up here: Penn State, Arkansas Pine Bluff, Iowa State, Troy. Okay, so work it up here. We shift to a box squat. We shift to a band squat. We shift to a goblet squat. You see our presses are very, we have variety in our presses: incline close grip bench, board bench, reverse band bench, bench press. So we're varying our movements. Our blocks are staying relatively the same, but they're getting a new stimulus every week. So it's what we've found that we can get the highest stimulus and have the most minimal work and obviously soreness as well. Okay. Questions about that piece of it, or comments about that piece of it before you get out of regulation?
I think it's cool how much we've simplified everything.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Absolutely. I couldn't agree more. I think, and that's probably the other big thing that I've noticed. About if I were to look at my programming 4 years ago, it's so much more simple now, and I just think we get caught up doing too much, and it makes a big difference just simplifying things. Okay. All right, so let's zoom in on this actually. All right, so here's how how we program. So obviously everything's color coded here, so you can kind of see it. Okay, so if you look at the red, obviously the biggest thing that we're thinking when we're programming, what are we programming?
Central nervous system.
We're programming the central nervous system, okay, and how these weights are going to affect the central nervous system, how these runs, how these practices, how all that's going to affect the CNS is what we're going for. So obviously, the red column is heavy. It's going to tax the CNS. Okay, the green is kind of what, where we see, you don't have too much CNS tax. You can still build strength. It's a good moderate zone. Yellow is on the lighter end, and then the white is very, very light. So as you program, you see those percentages, and that's how that works. That's what we use. All right. Now, what I'm talking about for auto regulation, okay, the CNS. So you've heard me say this a couple times now. The CNS can vary up to 18%. Okay. So let's just use this as an example. Okay. So your CNS can go up or down 18% any given day. All right. So stay with me. If I'm following this chart right here, all right, we have 85%. All right, 3 reps. Okay, 85% on this chart. Okay, 3 reps, 85%. It's heavy. It's going to tax us. All right, we know that. That's what we want. We're trying to increase our strength. All right, so 85%. It's a heavy load, so I'll put an H there for heavy. Okay, we know that. That's what we want. That's what we're going for. All right. Well, if we have an 18% swing, or here, let's just say a 14% swing. You had a bad night. You went out the night before. You celebrated your 21st birthday. Okay, you had a shift. So you had a 14% shift. All right. So our CNS is down 14%. It ain't feeling so hot today. Okay. What's this 86% become?
100.
Okay. So it becomes 100%. So now I'm going to come in and I'm going to work. Where's 100% on this chart, Coach? It's just not on there, right? Because it doesn't happen. You can't double 100%. Okay. So now where are we putting our guys in a pretty shitty position in season? Yeah, staying with me why that's important. Okay. Now vice versa. As far as strength goes, this is a big week for us. We're trying to get where we're above 85%. We're trying to get a pretty good strength work out here. All right. But like I said, TJ lost his virginity, so he's feeling great. Okay. He comes into the weight room and he's on cloud 9. All right. So he's the opposite. His is working the other way. His CNS is fired up. It's ready to freaking go. Okay. So now, instead of working 86%, what's he working? He's working 72%. Okay. So this is a big ass week for us. We're trying to get stronger. But hey, follow the sheets. It says 86%. We're gonna go 86%. Coach, on my triples here, where do you see 72?
Medium light.
So it's not a heavy load. So would we get the same stimulus? We wouldn't, okay? So it'd be a wasted day. So now this becomes a medium light load. Okay? So let me tell you how we program in season. And how I want to start programming everything. And this is how I program all of our NFL guys. Okay? Is using this chart. Okay, now this chart isn't off intensity. Well, it is off intensity. It's not off percentages. It's off the velocity that's attached to them. Okay? So if you look here. So we have 3x2, let's stay on week 4. 3x2 at 86%, okay? So I go to my doubles, 86%, okay? 0.41 meters per second, all right? So now that's what I'm looking for. So all I'm looking for is bar speed. So this is really 0.41, okay? We have a Tendo unit or any kind of accelerometer to measure velocity, okay? And this is average velocity, okay? You can't fool bar speed. I'm not moving a percentage, I'm moving a weight, and your CNS can only move it of how it feels. So this shit doesn't matter anymore. It's out of the equation because this is calculating this for me. So all I'm looking for is that. Now maybe block 1, maybe that's 405 pounds. Maybe block 2, when we hit there, you had a bad day, so maybe it's 365. And then maybe block 3, you're feeling great, maybe it's 500 pounds. I mean, but for us, we don't care because all we're trying to get is we're trying to train what?
CNS.
We're trying to train the CNS, or central nervous system. That's what gives me my ability to increase or decrease performance. At the end of the day, it all comes down to the central nervous system. Okay, so all we have limited Tendo units, but all of our starters they lift off of these numbers, not off of these numbers. Okay, now obviously percentages have worked for a long time, and we've had success doing that as well. But for me to be able to exactly measure that, I know when not to add volume when they can't handle volume. I know when they're feeling great and say, shit, let's freaking go. We're going 0.41 meters per second. So that's a massive piece of it to understand, and always understand, like I said, we're programming for what? What are we programming? The central nervous system. That is what stems all of this. We have to be able to have the ability to know when to back off, when to attack. If they're feeling good, let the dog eat type thing. Okay. So like I said, we have total 5 of these blocks, but that's what a block looks like. That's what a block is set up like. And then obviously, within the block, we'll do some form of power output movement. So it'll start with, that could be a kettlebell swing, it could be a med ball throw, it could be a power clean. And then we go into, our effort back squat, hip hinge. So like I said, that's a box squat, a goblet squat, a band squat, a back squat, whatever it may be. And then we'll go into our effort press. Could be a bench press, a dumbbell bench, a close grip bench, an incline bench, a band bench, a board bench. We have our template, and then we just freaking chug and plug. Okay, we're gonna hit the posterior chain, RDLs, reverse hypers, hyper extensions, hip lifts, some form of posterior chain, and then we're gonna take care of the shoulders. Okay, but that's our template, and the blocks stay the same. As you guys look through this, the template stays the same. We just shift in movements. If you see, all right, well here's a horizontal back movement. All right, it's not going to change. We're going to do another horizontal back movement. We're just going to variate what it is. We're going to do another horizontal back movement. So the template, another horizontal back movement. So the template stays the same. We just chug and plug, okay? So we know, hey, this first movement in the weight room, it's gonna be our velocity movement. It's gonna be our rate of force development, power output movement. We know that second movement is gonna be our hip hinge movement. It's gonna be some form of a squat. We know that third movement is gonna be a press movement. So it's super simple, a very simple program. We're just plugging and chugging now, okay? All right, what questions?
This just makes perfect sense. Earlier on in the year, when we were doing staff development, I did have to make a presentation on velocity-based training and how much that keeping track of the speed of the bar is tremendous as far as it helps you cease training. So exactly what you're saying, if we're supposed to be training at 86% and somebody's going through a rough time and they just went out, like how you just explained, they're doing terrible. They do their first rep and they're already burnt out. Rather than if they had a tendo unit and warming up, they can already tell that they're feeling crappy, so they can adjust. They don't have to worry about a percentage. They just got to worry about exactly how fast they're moving.
Yeah. I mean, how many times have you guys had athletes that were like they just look at you like with that puppy dog look, and they're like, I don't know what's going on today, coach. And they get crushed by we're doing 5 sets of 5, and they get that third set, and boom, they get freaking stapled to the ground on rep number 3. Well, you just fucked that kid for like a week. He's gonna be buried from that. And you guys remember when we were training our NFL guys this year, we didn't have one freaking movement like that, because in the warm-up set, if I knew their speeds weren't doing that, well then they didn't. We altered their weights. We changed their weights for their next 3 sets, and they never failed. We never had we didn't have one failure set in the 12 weeks that I trained those NFL guys. Not freaking one, because we could predict it, because everything was auto-regulated based off of speeds, not off of percentages. But I mean, I can't tell you that I've mastered it yet with athletes. I had guys this summer that we're doing cleans, we're doing squat, we're doing bench, and they get freaking stapled, and it's just all that is it's that. It's sleep. What last week I did 10 more pounds than this, and then all of a sudden the next week they'll do 30 more pounds than that, and it's just there's so many variables in this thing that we can't possibly try to understand. How many of them got 8 hours of sleep last night? How many of them ate 3 meals last night? How many of them are fighting with their girlfriends right now? How many of them have exams today? There's 120 of them. It's you're never going to win that battle. The velocity stuff that closes that gap, so we can read those things, so we know those things. And it's not saying I'm not saying like anybody listen. I'm not saying like if you do percentage you're freaking screwed, because you're not. People have been doing percentages only before 10 units for a long ass time. You'll be okay. You'll be able to figure it out. Just use your eyes and try to find out when a guy's having a bad day. And anybody can do that. When a guy's having a bad day. But this it makes it exact for us. We know exactly what we need to do, what the weight needs to be, because it's all based off of speed.
And for that matter, you always hear like know your team, know your guys. That 80% rule that we always talk about. This takes the guesswork out of it. So when we come in season and we're going through our warm-ups and our movement prep and we seeing the guys' moves and we see how they work those warm-up sets, all we have to do is just look at each other and it's like, we know.
Yep.
Always like, we know. And like, hey, take the weight down, 25, 30 pounds, start right here, let's see where you are, then we'll gradually build up. Because just think of it this way, if you start high, it's like you can't just take away from you either. You have to start low and build up. You can't start high and then build down. You have to have a base level and then to it. And that's what this APR stuff is helping us with when it comes to in-season programming. It's great.
Just like the modified Joe situation. If you see it during the warm up, even like a skip and scoop situation.
Oh yeah.
If they can't drop their hips, yeah, you expect them to move their back up and then
Yeah.
drop down a parallel. Like,
What's everybody's thoughts on what? So I mean, obviously, Bob Alejos, he's been doing it for a long time, and he reckoned when he says, a deload week 3x5 is 60%, and you got to take that into account. What are your guys' thoughts on that from the article?
I was always taught when it came to going through your reload weeks, you kind of take that first week and your second week, and the intensity and the volume that you have is in between of both of those. So you're never just strictly going to the bare bottom of things, but you're always in that range of where you were training throughout that entire block. And that's, I think I asked you that about where did the 60% come from. It was just a number thrown out. I would love to give them the email and see where
Yeah,
it came
I think we
from.
should. We should definitely reach out to them.
But I don't know. That's when it comes to reload week. That's where the intensity is. That's where the volume comes from when it comes to my programming. But I think we do a great job when it comes to our repetitions and our intensity when it comes to our guys, because we know them. We've been around them for so long.
I think one thing to remember too, for sure, and especially for you young guys, is stress is global. So when I just rattled off all those things, but your body, your CNS, it doesn't depict the difference between a heavy back squat and your girlfriend breaking up with you. Stress is stress to the body. So you have to remember that always when you're programming. If you test a team during finals week, how do you think the results are going to be? Is it because their legs are blown up?
Crazy.
No. Stress is stress. So you have to remember that. And maybe that goes back to what we talked about with the in-season peaking stuff. If you want to peak your guys and they lift their heaviest, on a week that they're playing their biggest game, well, their anxiety's already going to be up a little bit. They're a little stressed out about it. And maybe that's something you take into account too. But understanding that when you're programming year round and daily, and you're doing velocities, like that's such a tough thing. Because even think about like your deload weeks, whether you're doing 8s or 3s, if those dudes are in a high stress environment, if they have external things in their life going on that are stressing them out, is it really even a deload week? And then we shift them right back into another block, and it's like those, the 12 NFL guys. Like my thing that I'm just trying to figure out now, like how can we have those same results with the 105 guys? Because our NFL guys, that was stupid this year. What they were able to accomplish.
I want to say, Zay was hitting 405 for max velocity and bench press, hitting 550 on his squats and max velocity, and was doing it like it was easy.
Oh yeah, it was. I mean, those,
cake.
And they were never tired. Like you never got those guys coming in and those like we just didn't get it.
Every don't want me to work.
Yeah.
Don't want me to work.
Yeah, every day they just felt great, and the results were crazy. But there were some days that were supposed to be heavy ass days that weren't, and there were some days that were supposed to be lighter days that weren't, and we tailored it specifically to those guys on those days. And that's why I think, sometimes you get these freaking, it's always like someone thinks they can one up somebody, whether, it's you take a kid out of a 4-year college program down to NFL combine training, and, the guy takes all the credit for the kid, and, all this, it's a little easier to train a kid one-on-one than it is to train freaking 105 of them or 50 of them at one time. It's a little different ball game. So I think just always remembering that is also a big piece of it.
even during like our hypertrophy with those NFL guys, like once they drop below those velocities, we pulled the bar. We never let them fail.
Yeah, push-ups.
Yeah.
Or whatever it may be. You knew the velocities. It was awesome. What?
He also talked about his because the article was tailored towards baseball. He talked about training the day of.
Yeah.
And the running that most of his pitchers and stuff do. I thought that was kind of interesting.
But then you think about the balls you gotta have. If that's my starting pitcher, like I'm trying to think about lifting my starting quarterback the day of a football game. Like it takes some nuts to do that. You know what I mean? Because obviously if he goes out and has a shitty game, who are they gonna blame?
Right.
But even he lifted them after games sometimes.
Yeah,
too.
before and after, yeah.
So he
Baseball's
did
one of the
both.
beasts, though. Yeah, like I say, it's one of my. I really like the art. I thought it was really good. For sure.
I think going back on that reload thing too. I mean, we do 3x8 at 50. He does 3x5 at 60. But, I mean, you can deload it either by percentage and go up in volume, or
And you're never hitting that max contraction.
Yeah.
Is what I mean. I think at the end of the day, avoiding that is a big piece. It's not like what he was mentioning about, like, sets. You do sets of 8. It takes you to rep 7 and 8 to get to max contractions. Well, we're never getting to those with either of those rep ranges. It's just like I said, when we went back to hypertrophy that year, oh my God, it was a freaking bloodbath. Like, and it wasn't even like, it wasn't the fact, I said their GPP, their work economy, work capacity was just terrible. It was just terrible. And so I just noticed, like I said, I mean, if I can sneak it in those deload weeks, why would I not? And we tried it and it worked out great for us. So
I remember last year trying to sneak in a little bit of hypertrophy right after the season, and how it was like pulling teeth.
yeah. Well, that was for a different reason.
Yeah.
We had the freaking.
We're not gonna talk about that.
What else? What other questions?
Yeah, I think with that deload, I mean, those guys are still playing 3-4 games a week. They're traveling more than football players. We get 6 days off in between a game. Those guys get a night. They might get 2 nights. I mean, it's 90 games, or 162 games on 200 days.
Look right into the camera, Coach.
I'm
Harris.
gonna do it again,
Yes.
just because it came out. No, but yeah, I thought that was interesting. So if you look at it, it was like 5 reps at 60%, and you're just like, well, I mean, that's not a lot. That's not enough. But it might be because those guys are stressed out more. They're playing more. There's just so much more going on in baseball than there is in football. And then, the other thought I had was the peak week stuff. Are you truly ever going to get a peak when those guys get in train wrecks every Saturday? Those NFL guys talk about an NFL game, or even these guys, high intense collisions. Like, it's a train wreck every Saturday. Are you really going to get a peak week? Are you really going to get those guys peak, physically after that for 12 weeks in a row with 1 bye week? And I thought that was interesting, but yeah, I mean, that article was awesome. The stuff too, when he talked about getting into season, now you're getting into your skill. You're no longer, the summers for us, we get the summer, we get 9 weeks to get these guys going. We get to make them better weightlifters as much as it is to make them better football players. We do get to make them better weightlifters, better squatters. We get to improve their technique on the bench. But now it's football time, and that's where the volume is emphasized, is on the football field.
No doubt. Couldn't agree more. What else we got, guys? Questions? Anyone? Comments?
The end of the article, it talked about.
You need your magnifying glass, Coach?
I got my glasses on. You haven't cut off.
He wears bifocals for everyone watching.
But it talked about kind of looking at it. Do you guys have it where it has the intuition, the science? What were the other 2?
Common sense, intuition, and science.
Yeah, I thought that was really smart too.
Yeah.
Just kind of break it down. You just look at it in a common sense way. Just makes sense.
But at the end of the day, it all comes down to one thing, which is what, Coach?
Results.
Freaking results. I mean, at the end of the day, like,
Results, baby.
it's like the number one cop-out that you have when people are like, hey, why do you do it like this? And you're like, because it fucking works. And, I mean, it's even like, I love, Joe DeFranco, him and Cam talk about the heavy sled sprints. Okay, well, they got ridiculed for that stuff for years. Joe's been doing those forever. And then now, guess what's caught up with it is the science and the research. And the shit does work. I mean, weighted sled sprints freaking work. And so I think part of it is obviously, using your common sense, using intuition, but what works, what didn't work, and it's what we talked about last week too, is the ego stuff. If you have too big of an ego to be able to sit back and really truly evaluate your program and say, okay, that just didn't work. Like, that's okay. It's okay to swing and miss sometimes. And I love what Forrester said last week about changing the 10%. You shouldn't be overhauling your product. You shouldn't listen to these episodes and then go back and say, oh, we're going to change the whole freaking thing, scrap it all. You're always making small tweaks to your program. And you guys, every single one of you guys should be constantly developing your program. I mean, we're going to have a staff development this year where you're all going to get on the whiteboard one at a time and you're going to tell me what your program is. And you should have one. And it should be what, Green, you've been at 327 different schools. You should have a piece of everything you've taken from those places that develops your program. And at the end of the day, when you're coming down to it, the number one thing I'm evaluating is, did it work? This was great. We saw amazing results from A, B, and C. Well, then keep doing it. we didn't see very good results from D&E. Okay, well, maybe you should consider changing that 10% then. So I think that's a big piece of it. But I think we're about out of time. We're a little over an hour, right, Coach? So I hope you guys enjoyed the article. Obviously, ton of stuff today with that. Once again, any questions, you know, with the templates and stuff, if anybody wants to go over that stuff more in depth, shoot me an email. I'll try to answer those questions the best we can. Any recommendations or anything you guys have you really want to see, obviously, you know, we're going to do a whole bunch of these, but if there's something you guys want to know about, more so than anything else, shoot me an email. I'm definitely open to taking, you know, whatever topics you guys want. We get popular demand, we can go through some of those a little earlier, but hope this helped. If you guys have any more questions, let me know, and we'll see you guys next week.